So you should be able to see my screen, and if you can't, just let me know. But when you log into JobsEQ, you can come to this All Tools page. All of the data within JobsEQ are grouped into different analytics, and then those analytics are grouped into different sections on this All Tools page to help you find the data you're looking for. So I'll go over some of these sections here on this All Tools page, and then we'll get into some of the analytics that might be most helpful for you in your roles. So we have the reports section that has some ready-made reports that you can download as a PDF or a Word document. So if you're wanting a lot of information about a topic like an occupation or an industry or just economic overview of the region, you can start with these reports and then dive a little bit deeper into the other analytics to see more data for those topics. We also have the demographic section. So if you are looking for some different demographic information, you can find that here in these analytics. And that includes age, race, ethnicity, gender. Then we also have the occupation section that has some different information about occupations within your region, including occupation demand or wages or the employment too. The education section has some information about post-secondary institutions within your region and also skill information and training and retraining too. And also the industry section has some different information about industries within your region, including the employment and wages for different industries. So I won't have time to cover everything in this 2 hours, but I will try to cover some analytics that are most commonly used and also that might be helpful for you in your roles. And the first one I want to show you is Occupation Snapshot. Occupation Snapshot is a really great way to see more information about the occupations that you could be training for your students, and also such as the hospitality occupations. You can also see some job postings here, as well as demand and wages. So we can click on the Occupation Snapshot to go into the analytic. And when you go into an analytic, you can click on these three horizontal lines to open up that query window that's not open already. Then you can also click the lock icon to lock this window in place if you want to. This query window lets you select different regions and occupations to look at. So you can adjust your query with this query window on the right-hand side. And here you can choose different regions. So you can choose specific counties, states, MSAs. You can also look at specific zip codes or ZICTAs, or also custom regions too. And I can show you how to create custom regions and use those here in Occupation Snapshot in a little bit too. But for now, is using Los Angeles County okay?
Yes.
Thank you. And then we can also select different occupations to look at. So if you have a specific occupation, such as a cook or a bartender, and you wanted to look just at that occupation, you can type that occupation in here. You can also use total all occupations to see all of the occupations within the region. There are a couple different occupation groups that you may want to focus on if you're looking at a lot of those hospitality occupations. And one occupation group is, if you type in hospitality, events, and tourism. This will include some different occupations related to hospitality, events, and tourism. If you are looking specifically at the food preparation workers, you could also use the food preparation and serving related occupations. So those will have some similar occupations, but then the groups are also slightly different too. I will go back to the hospitality, events, and tourism occupation cluster. CTE stands for Career Technical Education. So these will be some different occupations related to hospitality, events, and tourism. And then we can also choose the SOC level to look at. So if you're not familiar with SOC codes, SOC stands for Standard Occupation Classification. And that's a way to classify each occupation to a six-digit SOT code. Then each of those six-digit codes are grouped into five-digit codes with similar characteristics. Those five-digit codes are grouped into three-digit codes, and then those three-digit codes are grouped into two-digit codes. So the two-digit SOT codes are those broadest groupings of occupations. It includes things like office and administrative support occupations, food preparation and serving related occupations, transportation and material moving occupations, and so on. If you want to become more detailed and get more detailed occupations, you can look at the SOT codes with more digits, where the six-digit SOT code is those detailed occupation level. So choose a six-digit SOT level to see those detailed occupations or specific occupations that fall within the hospitality, events, and tourism group. And then I'll click Run to run this. So this here in Occupation Snapshot, you can see the occupations and the corresponding SOT codes for the occupations that fall within this hospitality, events, and tourism CT cluster. And then we can also see a lot of information about these occupations, including the current employment and wages, historical data, and then also the forecasted data too. If we wanted to see how many people are working within an occupation within your region, you can check out this employment column. So if we're looking at cooks for the restaurant, there's 42,592 people working as cooks for the restaurant in Los Angeles County. And we can also scroll down to the bottom to see if we look at the hospitality events and tourism row, this will show the data, including the total employment for all occupations that fall within this hospitality events and tourism occupation group together. So within Los Angeles County, California, there is 691,420 people working in the hospitality, events, and tourism occupations. You can also compare that to the last row, the total all occupations row, which shows the data for all occupations within your region. And so there's 4,890,845 people working in any occupation within Los Angeles County, California. So you can see some information about which occupations have higher employment or which occupations are larger here with this employment column. You can also see the wages for these occupations, and this is also specific to the region you had entered. So in this case, Los Angeles County. Here you can choose between mean and median annual wages with the wage type section in the query window. So if you'd rather like to see median wages, you can just change this to median. But I'll just stick with mean. So if you are working with cooks for the restaurant, they make an average annual wage of $45,700 annually within the county. And you can also compare this to other occupations that fall within the hospitality, events, and tourism occupation group. If you click on any of these columns, you can sort this from highest to lowest or lowest to highest too. You might be also interested in the unemployment and unemployment rates for different occupations that your students could be going into. So for the unemployment column, we're looking at cooks for the restaurant. There's 4,115 people that are unemployed. So unemployed cooks for the restaurant that are living within Los Angeles County. And the unemployment rate is 8.6%, which is a little bit higher than for uh, the waiters and waitresses, which has an unemployment rate of 8.4%. You can also compare this to the unemployment rate for the region by scrolling down to the bottom row, and we can see that unemployment rate for the region as a whole is 5.9%. So the unemployment rate for cooks for the restaurant is a little bit higher than unemployment rate for the region as a whole. But you can see which occupations have the higher unemployment rates or which ones have the lower unemployment rates too that fall within this hospitality, events, and tourism occupation group. Then we can also see some information about the job ads that were active in the last 30 days for each of these occupations. So if you are working with students or career services, you might be interested in this online job ads column. So this is saying that there's 1,115 job openings that were active in the last 30, sometime within the last 30 days for cooks for the restaurant. But if we click on this blue number, we can see those job postings too, including the job titles of those job postings, the employers of those job postings, when it was posted, or the locations of the job ads, when it was posted, and if it's still active on the website, or when it was removed from the website, and then any wages were pulled from the job postings too. You can also dig a little bit deeper into any of these job postings by clicking on the job title, and this will take you to the job description. And then if it's still active, you can click View Original to view the original job ad and apply. You can also export this table here up to 10,000 job postings. And this is one way to share this with students. And you can also, if you wanted to, you could also use this Excel file to uh, do your own analysis for different employers that are hiring. But here within this Excel file or any of the exports, we also have this URL column. This URL column will take you to the job description. And this is where you can also click View Original to view the original job ad and apply. So if you are wanting to share job postings with students, this export of the job postings can be really helpful to be able to share the job postings directly with students because these URLs do not require a JobsEQ login. So if you are wanting to share job postings with students or other faculty members, exporting this pop-up window here can be really helpful for sharing those job postings. And these job postings come from over 45,000 different websites, including aggregators and job boards, staffing companies, and also individual company websites. And we do try to duplicate the job ads and only show those unique job ads too. So this online job ads column might be really helpful if you are working with students, but you can also see a lot more information about these different occupations, including how they have fared in the past. So have they been growing or have they been declining overall in the past? And that's with this historical section. So right now this is a 5-year history, but you can also view the number of years or change the number of years you view with the historical years section in the query window. And you can choose between 1 and 10 years for this. So if you want to see a little bit further out into the past, you can change this to 10. Or if you'd like to see a little bit closer to maybe avoid the COVID years, you can also change this to something a little bit smaller, like 3 years. So the next column is total employment change over those number of years you selected. So here, if we're looking at cooks for the restaurant, the employment has increased by 6,389 workers over the last over the last 3 years. This could include some of the uh, rebound from COVID too. But then we can also see the historical annual percentage change here. And if we click on this column, we can sort it so we can quickly see which occupations within hospitality, events, and tourism have been growing the fastest over the last 3 years and which ones have been declining the fastest or growing smallest amount, uh, the slowest over the last 3 years. So you can see how these different occupations have changed in the past to see if they have been a growing occupation or a declining occupation. Yeah, but you can also see the demand for each of these occupations, the forecasted demand for each of these occupations, to see if there is a forecasted need for these occupations in the future. So right now, this is a 1 year forecast, but you can change the number of years you view with the projection years section in the query window. You can choose between 1 and 10 years for this too. So if you want to change this to 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 years, projection years, just go ahead and change that here in this projection years section. Then you could click run to run that as well. Now just,
Jessica, may I ask you a question?
yeah,
Since LA is going to be hosting a lot of events, starting with the World Cup in 2026 and then Olympics, are those projection already being formulated in the projection of the openings or no?
like they likely won't be included here in these projections right now. So it largely comes from, at the national level, it comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics 10-year employment projections. And then we
Mm.
bring those down to the local level based on the past employment change, as well as other factors. But events like the Olympics or other large events like that likely won't be included in this baseline
Mm.
forecast.
Okay,
But you
got it.
could, but you could create your own forecast to include that information, and then use that here in Occupation Snapshot. So to create your own custom forecast, you click on this profile icon and then click forecast to create your own custom forecast to include those large events, and what occupations or industries might be growing because of those events.
Thank you. That will be very helpful if you can show us how to do that.
Yeah. So I'll definitely go over the custom forecasts in a little bit. Yeah. But just based on this the baseline forecast, which is the default forecast within JobsEQ, those likely won't be showing up. Um, but here within this forecast section, you can see different information about for the forecasted employment or demand for these occupations. So the next column is the total forecasted demand, and that's the total forecasted number of workers that are forecast to be needed to be trained in each of these occupations to fill the need for these occupations for the county. So for cooks for the restaurant, 6,706 new cooks for the restaurant are forecast to be needed to be trained to fill the need for this occupation in the next year. And this is the sum of the next three columns: exits, transfers, employment growth. So here for exits, that is the total forecasted number of workers that are forecast to be needed due to people leaving the workforce for things like retirements or for going back to school and leaving the workforce or raising a family and leaving the workforce. So 2,851 cooks for the restaurant are forecast to be needed to backfill the positions due to people leaving the workforce. That's out of the total 6,706 people that are forecast to be needed for that occupation. The transfers are the forecasted demand in new workers due to workers changing major occupation groups. So this is, for example, moving from a cook occupation to a construction worker occupation. So these are large occupation changes, and these would be the number of workers that are forecast to be needed to backfill those positions due to people changing occupation groups. Then we also have the employment growth column. So here we can see which occupations are forecast to grow or decline over the next year in this case. So if we're looking at cooks for the restaurant, 227 new cooks for the restaurant are just forecast to be needed just due to that occupation growing. whereas first line supervisors of food preparation and serving workers is forecast to decline by 132 workers over the next year. But there's still a high demand for this occupation because of the exits and transfers and needing to replace those occupations. So the employment growth column shows whether the occupations are forecast to grow or decline. Then we also have this forecasted annual growth rate here. So if we click on this column, we can quickly see which occupations within hospitality, events, and tourism are forecast to grow the fastest, which ones are forecast to decline the fastest over the next year. So it looks like cooks for the restaurant are an occupation that is forecasted to grow quickly in the next year. And if you do want to share this with other people, you can click on Export to export this to Excel, Word, PDF, or an image. You can also click on the um, bar chart icon on the left-hand side to see graphically how that employment has changed historically, and then also how it's forecasted to grow or change. So here it looks like over the next 3 years, it's been growing and then leveling off, and it's forecast to grow a little bit as well. And I know I went through a lot of different terms here. If you do have questions with what any of these terms mean, you can click on this question mark icon to see a video tutorial for occupation snapshot, as well as a help documentation section. So this will be specific to whatever analytic you're on. So if you do have questions with any of the analytics, you could always check out the help page or the video tutorials if there are any. And if we go to the help documentation section for occupation snapshot, here we can find a description of the analytic as well as some technical notes or sources of the data here. And then we also have a description of each of the columns. So if you do have questions with what any of these terms mean, including, for example, the online job ads or the total demand, you can find those definitions here in this help page. Or you can also use the live chat to ask an economist or mathematician in-streamer a question, including what any of these terms mean here too. But are there any questions right now with Occupation Snapshot? Okay, so if you are wanting to get a lot of information about occupations that uh, your students might be going into, or including the employment and wages and demand for those occupations or some job ads, checking out Occupation Snapshot is a really great way to find that information and get an overview of those occupations. And we have been using the baseline forecast, but if you do want to create a custom forecast to include some of the events that could be coming up soon, you can also create a custom forecast by clicking on the profile icon and then click on forecast. This lets you create a custom forecast. You'll have to name this custom forecast. So I'll just name it Los Angeles Custom Forecast. You could also share this custom forecast with other people on your JobsEQ license if you want to. So if all of you want to use the same custom forecast, one of you just has to create it and click on the share this forecast box. And once it's saved and compiled, everybody else would just have to type or select the forecast from that drop-down menu. And then here you can select the uh, information that you want to include for your forecast. So we can select a region. Then we'll have to select an industry that's growing. So if you're looking at the Olympics, for example, uh, the restaurants might get a larger increase in employment or spending, so they might have to em employ a higher number of people. So we can select industry. Then you can also select the number of years that this event is going to go over. So since it's 2028 for the um, Olympics, you can go over the next 5 years. So let's go the next 3 years. So over the next 3 years, you might be increasing the employment. Then we also have the rate here. So this is the rate, the forecasted rate, current forecasted rate based on our baseline uh, forecast. But you can also change this to the rate that you're looking for, or you can also use calendar icon or the calculator icon. So here, this is the current employment. If you think that the employment for the restaurants is going to need to increase to 450,000 over the next 3 years, you can change this to 450,000 in the next 3 years to see the rate there too. That might be a little bit high, so I'll go with 400,000. Then you can keep adding the different industries that might benefit from or need to increase their employment for these events. Once you are ready to compile this, you can click Save and Compile. And it'll take a little bit of time to compile, so you can see that here and how long it's is to taking to compile. Then once it is ready to finish compiling, you can go into an analytic that lets you select the forecast, and you'll be able to select this. Since this is still compiling, it is not available right now to use, but you once this is finished compiling, you can use this forecast rather than baseline. So the custom forecast lets you create a new forecast for events that could be happening, like the Olympics or other large events that could be happening in your region, if you know that that employment is going to increase for a specific industry. But any questions with creating a custom forecast or using those in analytics?
Not for me. This was great. Thank you. Staff, anybody, team?
No, it's great information. Mainly, I think, to find out where the jobs are coming so we can help, our students find the right job. Um, yeah, it's great information. It's fantastic. Seems like it'll save a lot of time that we normally spend searching for jobs for folks.
I knew you were going to like it, Alice.
I love it.
That's really good to hear too. So I have been using just all of Los Angeles County, but if you wanted to just look at specific regions within the county, or maybe even a larger region and look at a couple different counties together, you could do that as well. And that's by creating a custom region. So to create a custom region, you can also go to this profile icon in the upper right corner, and you can create different customizations here, but I will go to region next to create a custom region. Here's some regions I have already created, but I'll click on Create New Region to create a new region. So we'll have to name this region. So I can just name it LA Hospitality Training Academy Custom Region. You can also click on the Share This Region box if you want to share this custom region with other people on your JobsEQ license. You can also choose, or for the custom region status that is set on draft mode, and to click Save. Then depending on your region resolution, it could either stay ready, or it could show the status of the custom region and where it is in compiling or saved. The region resolution is the building blocks for your custom region. So if you wanted to create a custom region that consists of a few different counties, you could use this county region resolution, and you can see the counties in this map. You can also choose ZICTA. ZICTA stands for Zip Code Tabulation Area, and that's similar to zip codes. So if you wanted to create a custom region that consists of a few different zip codes within the county, so if you wanted to focus on a certain area, you can create a custom region based on ZICTAs. You can see those ZICTAs in this map. You can also, since you have JobsEQ Pro, you can also create custom regions based on blocks. And those are census blocks. So if you wanted to get even more specific, you can also create a custom region based on blocks. With the region resolution as block, it does take a little bit more time to save and compile than the county or ZICTA, but it does get you more granular as well. Now I'll go back to the ZICTA region resolution. And there are different options for creating custom regions here on the left-hand side of this map. So one option is to click to select them with the select option. So you can just select a couple different ZICTAs that you want to include in your custom region. And once you click save, your custom region would consist of these 6 ZICTAs or this entire shaded region. So if you wanted to get more specific than the county, you could create a custom region that consists of a few different
Oh, thank
ZICTAs.
you.
You can also use the type region option to type regions in. So if you wanted to select all of Los Angeles County,
These look sturdier.
you may want to mute your microphone. So you can still type in all of Los Angeles County if you want, or specific ZICTAs or regions to include within your custom region.
No, that's kind of good to know.
Socrates, please mute your microphone.
One more. So one more time. Say that again.
Mute your microphone.
You can also create custom regions based on a radius too, if you like. So if you wanted to look at a certain region based on a radius, you can also create a custom region based on a radius. And here, for example, if you wanted to look at a 15-mile radius from your school and just focus on that area, you do a 15-mile radius and then enter an address or latitude, longitude, or click a point on the map. So if you have an address, like I have address for your school as 1150 South Olive Street, Los Angeles County, or at Los Angeles, California, 90015. Click run. So now we can see the 15-mile radius around the address I entered. So if you did want to create a custom region based on a radius, that is an option. And with the the region resolution as zecta. Any zecta that touches or intersects this circle will be included in entirety in the custom region. So all the zecta will be included, or all of the zecta will be included, and all of the zecta will be included. So it might be a lot big, a little bit bigger than the circle you had created. Um, You could also create a custom region based on blocks. So now that would be a little bit more granular and closer to the circle you had created. So depending on how granular you'd like, you could use Zicta or block region resolution for this radius option. If you select a county, now any county that touches the circle will be included in entirety in the custom region. So all of Los Angeles County would be included in this case. So we recommend using Zicta or a block region resolution for the radius option and the drive time option, which is the next one. Then you can also create a region based on a drive time. So if you wanted to look at a 30-minute drive time from your location. So maybe your students are going to be working in a 30-minute drive time from your school. You can enter a 30-minute drive time, and then you can enter the address, latitude, and longitude, or just click a point on the map for that central location. Then you can also choose a time of day to look at, so a peak commute time or non-peak commute time, or you can also use just average time of day. We can click run. So now this shows the 30-minute drive time from the point I selected. So in this case, the address I found for your school. But again, since the region resolution is Zicta, any Zicta that touches or intersects this orange spot will be included in entirety in the custom region. But if you wanted to get more specific and more granular, using block region resolution can help you get more granular. But since that takes a little bit of time to compile block region resolutions, I will use the Zicta region resolution for this. I will save this one, so 30-minute drive time. I'll rename it to 30-minute drive time, and click save. Once you click save, you can also see the region preview for this custom region by clicking on region preview. And this will show you the zictas, in this case, that will be included in the custom region. So the region that you'll actually be drawing data from when you use it in analytics. You can also click on Run Analytics to see some different analytics that you can run with custom regions. So this just shows a shortcut from the custom regions to different analytics. So if I go back into Occupation Snapshot, I can just type in the name of my custom region to use it in an analytic. Depending on the size of the analytic, it might time out here, especially for Occupation Snapshot. But if it does, you can still use uh, a data fetch to be able to get this Occupation Snapshot data. So it looks like it did run, but to type it in, if you wanted to use a custom region, you can just type it in, type the name in. If you don't remember what the name of your custom region is, or even one that was shared with you, you can also click on these three horizontal line or three dots here and click on Explore Regions. That lets you see some different regions that you can select. So if you go to Customs, this is where you can find your custom regions that you had created, along with custom regions that were shared with you by others. So if you're not really sure what the name of your custom region is or what the name of a custom region that was shared with you that you'd like to use, you can check out the custom regions that you can select here in this Explore Regions option. Or if you know the name, you can just type it in here to the regions box. You can also select hospitality, events, and tourism. So if you are doing studies for specific areas within the county or within the city, you could create custom regions for each of those areas and then use that within different analytics like occupation snapshot. So now the data here is only specific to that 30-minute drive time custom region that I had created. So if you did want to look at a specific region that might be a little bit smaller than the county, but maybe a little bit bigger than a zip code or ZICTA, that is uh, it is an option to create a custom region and then use that in analytics too. And it looks like the custom forecast is also ready now. So you could use the custom forecast here too, which are only available for county-based regions. But if it's a county-based region, like Los Angeles County, this forecast section will be adapted for your the Los Angeles your custom forecast you had created. So if you do want to customize it, including creating custom regions or custom forecasts, those are available for you. But any questions with creating custom region or using those in analytics?
No, this is fantastic. I thought it was great before, but this ZICTA thing is even going to be more helpful because when you're working with a student, where they live, how they're going to get to the job. Um, this, yeah, it's a game changer. This is great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely that can be really helpful for putting in a student's address too. So yes.
Exactly. Yes.
Um, then you might also want to know more information about an occupation. So if you click on the occupation title, this will bring up a pop-up window with some different analytics you can run with for this occupation. To get more information, I will go into occupation profile. Occupation profile is where you can find a lot of information about a specific occupation, which can be really helpful if you are working with students or maybe with faculty members who are working with students too. So here in occupation profile, you can see a description of the occupation at the top. So this can be helpful if you're not really sure what this occupation does. You can also see the typical entry-level education and training requirements for this occupation. So for cooks for the restaurant, the typical entry-level education is none, but the previous work experience is less than 5 years with moderate term on-the-job training typically needed. But there are some people who are working as cooks who might have a higher education. So with this educational attainment profile, you can see how many people, the percentage of people that are working as cooks for the restaurant for the region you had selected. So in this case, Los Angeles County, how many have different educational levels. So here for cooks for the restaurant, it looks like 36.8% have a high school diploma equivalent, but then there's also 12.8% of people who are working as cooks that have some college no degree, which could be that certificate level. And then there's also 5.3% that have an associate's degree. But there's also some people working as cooks for the restaurant who have a higher degree than that as well. Then if we scroll down, we can also see this regional post-secondary programs section that includes some different post-secondary institutions that report to the National Center for Education Statistics uh, and the types of awards or completion data that they have. So if your students are wanting to go to another post-secondary institution to get a certificate level, um, you could, these are some different schools that they could go to too. But then we also have the wages section here where you can see some wages for this occupation that your students could be getting. So you can see mean entry level and experience level wages for this occupation, as well as wages by industry. So for cooks uh, working in restaurants and other eating places, they make an average annual wage of $45,100. But if they worked in the travel accommodations industry, they might make a little bit more at $54,400. So this occupation profile, you can also export through Excel, Word, or PDF. And this is one way where you can share this directly with students. So if you are wanting to share more information about an occupation with students, this is one way to do that with occupation profile. You can also see other post-secondary institutions or wage information and educational attainment for people who work in this occupation. Any questions with occupation profile? And we did have a little bit of wage information in the occupation profile and also a little bit of information about wages here in this occupation snapshot. But we can find even more information in occupation wages. Occupation wages just has a lot of information about wages for certain occupations. Um, so here within occupation wages, you can enter a specific occupation or occupation group you wanted to look at. And so if we wanted to look at cooks for the restaurant, you can see the mean entry level and experience level wages for this occupation, as well as wages by percentile. So you can see a wage range for this occupation. This here is annual wages, but you might want to see hourly wages instead. So you can just select that hourly wages box, and you can see wages, hourly wages for these occupations. And this is also specific to the region you had entered. So in this case, Los Angeles County. And if you also click on this bar chart icon, you can see those graphically too. So this could also be something you can share with students or with other people so they can see what types of wages are available for this occupation. So if you're wanting to see more information about wages, occupation wages can be really helpful for that too. You might also want to see information about skills that these occupations might need. So some different skills that your students might need that you may want to have them put into their resumes or their applications, or maybe skills that you may want to include within your curriculum too. So if we go into skill gaps, which is in the education section of the all tools page, this is where we can find some information about skills and some skill gaps. So here in skill gaps, this compares the skills that are requested by employers through their job postings or job openings for the demand, and compares that to the skills that are listed in online profiles for the supply. So those are online profiles from LinkedIn. So here on the left-hand side, this is a supply deficit. So these are skills where more job openings request this skill than people put into their LinkedIn online profiles. So these have a supply deficit. So these might be skills that your students may want to include within their resumes or applications to make them a little bit more marketable. Or if you're working on curriculum, you may want to include these skills or certifications in the curriculum too. For some of these, like Microsoft Office, that might seem a little bit odd. This might be because they might not include this in their online profiles. Students or people, candidates might not put this in their online profiles because it's so common, but it's being requested in the job openings. If we change or also for the supply surplus side, this is where there is more uh, people that or candidates list this on their online profiles than job openings request. But especially looking at the supply deficit side might be a good way to see what skills you may want to focus on, either having students put into their applications or maybe uh, putting uh, helping with curriculum. We can also change the display type to table to see more information about these gaps. So you can see the number of candidates versus the number of openings that have these skills or list these skills. So you can see where those gaps are coming from. So things like cash handling, barista, serving, Microsoft Office, telecommunications, English, retail sales, cash registers. These are also different skills that have supply deficits that you may want to focus on too. So if you are looking at specific skills or certifications, skill gaps can be a really great analytic to look at too. Any questions with skill gaps?
I think we're good on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, We might also want to see if there are any gaps in occupations. So we can go into occupation gaps. Occupation gaps compares the projected demand for these occupations compared to the projected uh, educational attainment of residents within the region for the supply side. So if we change this to the hospitality, events, and tourism, and see here on the left-hand side is where there's potential supply deficits. So potentially there could be more demand for these occupations than there are workers for these occupations in the future. So things like cooks for the restaurant, first line supervisors of entertainment recreation workers, chefs and head cooks, food service managers, first line supervisors of landscaping workers, entertainment recreation managers, and more. All of these have potential supply deficits. So these could be areas that you might want to focus on. Like you said, you had a program for cooks for the restaurant. So this could also justify why that program is needed too. Whereas the ones on the right-hand side, there's a supply surplus, a potential supply surplus. So potentially there could be more uh, workers for these occupations than there is a demand for these occupations in the future. So things like fast food and counter workers, waiters and waitresses, hosts and hostesses, food preparation workers, cooks for fast food, all could potentially have a supply surplus and could potentially have trouble finding work in the future. So this might be a good analytic to see where there could be some supply deficits or supply surpluses in the future. But any questions with occupation gaps?
No.
We also did mention about looking at different demographics. So if you wanted to see some different information about demographics, you can also go into occupation diversity. Occupation diversity has a lot of information about demographics for people who work in different occupations. So here we can see this in chart version. So the age breakdowns, educational attainment, race breakdowns, ethnicity breakdowns, gender breakdowns for people who work in a certain occupation or occupation group. But if I change this to the table, I can also see this with numbers. So if we wanted to look at it by gender, so the different occupations that fall within hospitality, events, and tourism, broken down by gender. Do that here. So if we're looking at cooks for the restaurant, in this case, there's 27,230 males that are working as cooks for the restaurant in Los Angeles County, whereas there's 16,461 females. We can also see this as percentages too, if you want to see that. So 62.3% of cooks for the restaurant are male and 37.7% are female. So you can see different gender breakdowns, for example. You can also see age breakdowns, race breakdowns, ethnicity breakdowns. You also see educational attainment and education and training requirement for these different occupations too. But if you did want to look at gender breakdowns like that for different regions, this could be a good way to look at those breakdowns here for different occupations. So occupation diversity looks at demographics by occupation. If you just wanted to see the demographics for the region as a whole, you can also use demographic profile. So this lets you see the uh, gender breakdowns or race breakdowns for residents within a region. And you can select up to 3 different regions here. So if you wanted to compare 3 different regions, you can enter those different regions here. And there are 4 different tables to look at in demographic profile. The first one is the summary table, and this just gives you a lot of information about the demographics of residents for the region you had selected. So here you can see population breakdowns, age breakdowns, race, ethnicity, labor force participation rates and sizes, mean commute times, or median commute times, median household incomes, educational attainment of residents in the region, housing data, social data, so those in poverty, those enrolled in grade 12, households receiving food stamps or SNAP, those with a disability, children in single parent families that could be a barrier to work too. You can also see this historically with the historical mode. And so you can see how it has changed over time. For example, if we're looking at gender breakdowns, you can see how this has changed over time. And you can also see this graphically with this graph icon. You can also see some different unemployed data. So demographics for unemployed people within the region, including the total number of unemployed, broken down by age, gender, race, revenue status, and educational attainment. Household income data. So the total number of households, the mean and median household income, and then the households broken down by different income brackets. Then also region stats data. So that includes commuting data, K through 12 characteristics, electricity rates, and union membership rates. So if you are wanting to look at a specific region and just wanted to know more information about that region, uh, demographic profile can be really helpful. But if you wanted to compare different regions together in a map, that is also possible. So if you wanted to look at gender breakdowns, for example, females, and see which areas within Los Angeles County have more females, you can click on this female, and it will take you directly to maps. So here, um, I will select on the gear icon to change this from percentages to numbers to see which areas have more female workers if you'd like, if you wanted to see that. You can also add the values here with the labels section. So you can add the value, the name, or both. So you can quickly compare different regions within the county or the region you select to be able to compare them. You can also export this as an image. You can also export this to Excel to see all those regions at once. So you can see a lot of different data here in maps. You can see anything from demographic profiles. So if you wanted to look at race and which areas have a specific race, uh, more of a specific race, you can do that as well. You can also do anything from demographic profile here. You can also map other data here too, including occupation data. So if you wanted to see which areas within Los Angeles County have more cooks for the restaurant working, you can do that too. So that's with the occupation data set. So these are areas that your students might be able to find work if there are more people who work in cooks for the restaurant for these locations. Or these could be areas where you may want to focus on for looking for employers for your students. So you can see occupation data or occupation employment data, unemployment rates, underemployment award data, online job ads, uh, as well as other data here, and map them in maps. But any questions with demographic profile or maps?
Oh, I was just curious to see the region of the demographic unemployment. Would you be able to show us that? Like the areas that are having highest rates of unemployment in Los Angeles?
Yeah. So if we can change this to the gear icon or click on the gear icon, then we can also go to the unemployment rates if we wanted to look at the unemployment rates. That's county. So go into demographics. Uh, so unemployed, the total unemployed, and select ZICTA. So this in demographic profile, the total unemployed will be down to the ZICTA level or place level. Whereas if we look just at the unemployment rate, that only goes down to county level. So here, if we're looking at the rates, this is by rate, but you can see which areas looks like a lot of northern Los Angeles County have the higher unemployment rates. You can also see some areas here that also do have higher unemployment rates too.
Thank you.
But any other questions with maps? One thing is if you did want to highlight those higher unemployment rates, you can also change the colors here by clicking on this gear icon. And then here with this display settings, you can change this one, for example, this higher unemployment rate to a different color like red to help them stand out too. So you can change the colors if you would like to as well. So anything that you'd like to map, you can map here. You can save this map if you'd like and load it again if you'd like. So that is also available for you too. So I know I went through a lot of different information and different analytics. If you do want a lot of information at the same time in one simple report, you can also check out these reports. So if we go into the occupation report just gives you a lot of information at the same time. And here on the right-hand side, you can select your region and occupation you wanted to look at. You can also choose the wage type, so mean or median, then also the file type, so if you want to see that as a PDF or a Word document. Here on the left-hand side, you can also select sections of the report you wanted to see or not see. You can also move them around by clicking and dragging. You can also add your local information to the coverage sheet if you want to by clicking on this checkbox. And to just add that to JobsEQ, just click Edit Add Company Info. Then we can click Run to run this. Here, this will go to the notification center, which is the bell icon in the upper right corner. And depending on what else is in the queue in front of your report, it might take a little bit of time to run, but while you're waiting for it, you don't have to stay on that page. So you can go to other analytics and research more data. You can even log off if you want to, and it'll still run in the background for you. And once it is ready to download, there'll be a red dot next to the bell icon, just letting you know it is ready to download. But while we're waiting for that report to run, are there any other questions so far? So if you did want to look at multiple regions, Maps is a great way to look at multiple regions. Also, Data Fetch and Data Explorer are also two other ways where you can look at multiple regions. This lets you create different tables uh, for multiple regions at once too. Also within the report section, you can, if you're looking at a specific industry, you could choose the industry spotlight report to see a lot of information about that industry. If you just wanted to see the economic overview of a region, you can also check out this economic overview report too. But it looks like the occupation report is ready to download. There's a red dot next to the bell icon. So I will click on the bell icon to see that notification center. Then I can click on the blue title to download this report. Here in the occupation report, we have a title page, and this is where your organization logo information would go if you wanted to add that to your report. We also have occupation snapshot data here. So this is from the occupation snapshot analytic. You can find employment, wages, and demand for these different occupations. We also have these light bulb icons down here. This can be helpful for giving a little bit of description of some of these terms in the report in the section, especially if you are wanting to share this with other people who may not know what these terms mean. These light bulb icons can be helpful. Then we also have employment by industry. So for people who are working in the hospitality, events, and tourism occupations, you can see which industries they are employed in, including restaurants and other eating places, services to buildings and dwellings, traveler accommodations, and so on. Also wages for these or for these occupations. Occupation demographic information, which we saw earlier. Post-secondary programs linked to these occupations and some schools that have these programs. Skill and certification gaps, so that's from skill gaps. Occupation gaps here. Geographic distributions, both where people work and live that are working in the hospitality, events, and tourism occupations. Then also regional maps, so where you're drawing the data from. Some data notes here for sources of the data. And then also some frequently asked questions. So if you are wanting to know a lot of information about the occupation all in one simple report, rather than running each analytic separately, you can start with this occupation report and then dive a little bit deeper into these other analytics to find some more information. But any questions with the occupation report? So I know I went through a lot of different information, so I did want to highlight some helpful resources at the top. So we do have a search bar here. So if you are searching for something specific, like if you're wanting to know a little bit more about wages and you're not really sure which analytic might be helpful, you can type in wages at the top and it will give you some different options, different analytics for wages, including occupation wages, labor and wage trends, also has some wage information. So that's one way to search for something specific to try to find an analytic that can be helpful for that data. But if you are still having trouble finding the data you're looking for, you can also check out this live chat. The live chat is where you can ask an economist or mathematician intramural question. The chat hours are 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern time. So if it's after 3 p.m. for you, you may not get a live person, but you can still type in your question and then we'll just get back to you the next business day by email. So you can ask a lot of different questions here, like where can I find this data? Is this data available? What do the terms mean in this report or this analytic? Or any other types of questions, and we can help you quickly get an answer to your question. So I really highly recommend using the live chat if you do have questions. But you can also use the question mark icon to also find some additional resources for you that are available for you. And depending on the analytic, you can find some video tutorials for the analytic. And then also this help documentation section will also be specific to the analytic you're in. When you click on the help documentation on the all tools page, it will take you to the general info page. And here is where you can find some navigation, data sources that we use in JobsEQ, description of the methodology notes that we use in JobsEQ, description of the classification systems too. And we also have the video library section here on the left-hand side that includes all the different video tutorials that we have in JobsEQ, including getting started with JobsEQ, and also most popular analytics and video tutorials for several different analytics in JobsEQ, including Data Explorer if you do want to try Data Explorer. So you can always check out those video tutorials if you like, or the help documents. Also, if we go to the home page, this homepage is where you can find different sectors that use JobsEQ. But if we go into one like the JobsEQ for Education, this has some different research questions or use cases that education clients have. So if we go into the demand section, you can research job demand for your students. And this is where you can find some different analytics that can be helpful for looking at job demand for your students. You can research that demand by occupation or industry, or just have more demand analyses with these sections at the top. But if you wanted to research demand by occupation, here's some different steps you can take. So for example, you can gather the baseline occupation statistics, and then you can gather the baseline occupation statistics by clicking on Run Occupation Snapshot. And if you click on it, it will take you to the analytic. So this homepage and these tiles here can be really helpful if you are just starting out with JobsEQ and you're not really sure which analytics that might be helpful for a specific topic or question that you have. This homepage can help guide you into those analytics. But of course, you can also use the All Tools page to quickly find all of the analytics that you have access to with your JobsEQ license. And I know I went through a lot of different information here in this hour and a half. Is there any other questions or anything else that you want to go over today, or just want to play around with it?
I think you covered everything. Staff, any questions?
And if they
No, it's great.
Good.
No questions.
Okay, so if you do have any questions, feel free to use that live chat feature if you'd like to help you quickly get an answer to your question. And if you'd like, you can also set up an additional training sessions or shorter support sessions if you'd like this one, to go over something specific in a video call or training session too. But definitely feel free to reach out using that live chat if you do have shorter questions too. But if there's no other questions right now, I just hope this helped you learn a little bit more about JobsEQ and what's available within JobsEQ. And if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out. But otherwise, I just hope you have a great rest of your day too.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Really appreciate it.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Have a great
much.
day.